Over the past several months, I've done a handful of projects using ESP32 boards that run on battery. And so in this video, I just wanted to give you a couple of follow-ups on the battery life that I've been able to achieve with a couple of those projects. And I wanted to give you some tips and things that I've learned about how to maximize battery life when you're using an ESP32 board. So one of my first battery-powered projects was a data logging scale that I used for one of my espresso tests. And that scale really doesn't have very good battery life. And I'll talk a little bit about why whenever I go through some of the things that I've learned and some of the tips that I'm going to give you. But coming out of that project, I knew, hey, I've just really got to do better. And so my second ESP32 project was the voice remote. And I knew I really wanted to get good battery life because, I intended for that to be able to be used by other people. And, who wants to be charging a voice remote like every day or once a week? That just seemed like too much. And so I've actually recorded all the battery voltages. That remote wakes up once a day and updates Home Assistant on its status. And so there's an add-in card that you can get for Home Assistant called History Explorer that allows you to export all the data from a sensor in a CSV file. And so here is all the data from the voice remote battery voltage. You may be able to see over here on the right, I am currently at almost 93 days on battery, and I have not yet charged that voice remote. Now, quick caveat, I don't really use the voice remote that much, so most of this is just deep sleep state. It wakes up once a day, but other than that, I'm not really using it because, frankly, voice assistance isn't something that I really want a whole lot in my day-to-day life. But this does allow me to kind of look at how the battery has held up over time. And again, I'm about 3 months in. The last time I charged that voice remote was prior to June. So on June 1st, that voice remote got pulled off the charger at about 4.24 volts. But come down to the bottom, it's currently still at 3.85 volts, which is pretty good. And so in this line chart, you can see it's holding up pretty steady. And presuming that the battery dies somewhere, around 3.4 volts, this is a third order polynomial fit. And it suggests that I should be able to get roughly 160 days at current use, which is, over 5 months. Now, even if you, assume that it's going to be dead at like 3.6 volts, that's still roughly 140 days predicted battery life. And who knows what it'll actually end up being. But as of right now, after 3 months, it's still got quite a bit of battery life remaining, at least another month. And so that'll be 4 months. So I consider that a pretty good success. And it's worth pointing out that this voice remote only has a 500 milliamp hour battery. So, that's not a huge battery, and for it to be lasting this many months, I'm pretty satisfied with that. So my next project was the soil moisture sensor, and I really wanted at least a month's worth of battery life on that sensor because it's outside. I really don't want to have to charge it that often because it's kind of sealed up, and I have to open it and break the seal every time I want to charge it. So, I really only wanted to do that at most once a month. So for that sensor, I used a 1200 milliamp hour battery, and it's held up actually pretty well. So you can see in that photo, I'm zoomed out to 6 months. So I actually started off updating that sensor once an hour, and then I backed it off to 4 times a day, thinking that would help. And I still found that that battery life was much shorter than I wanted. I was only getting like a week at a time. And if you look at this chart, you can see after my last charge, the battery has lasted a whole lot longer. And that's going to be one of the big tips that I give you is making sure that your sensors aren't draining the battery when they're not being used. And that was what I found was the problem, was that the sensor was just running all the time, and that was draining the battery even if I didn't really need to be using that sensor. And here's the current chart. Now this one looks a lot rougher. I'll point out that this thing only updates about 4 times a day, and there was this big drop off a few weeks back because I had to move it. It was no longer getting Wi-Fi signal, and somehow it used a ton of battery during a brief period of time where I was messing with it. Not really sure why, but at any rate, that has affected some of the battery readings. It looks like it dropped quite a bit. However, that said, since last charge, I'm currently at about 53 to 54 days on battery with quite a bit left. I would not be surprised for this thing to end up lasting maybe even another month, in which case that would be up to about 2.5 months of battery life. So I am well past my original kind of requirement for a 30-day battery life. I hit that weeks ago. So, again, I call this a pretty successful project for, again, what my intended goals were. And so with that, let's go ahead and get into my suggestions for getting better battery life if you're going to be using an ESP32 in your project. And just to start off, let's make sure that we understand, like, my advice here, I'm kind of presuming that you're using the ESP32 so that you can have Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, right? I mean, ESP32s are not the most power efficient boards to begin with, and Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, they suck a lot of battery. And so if you're not going to be needing them, you probably can use something else. You don't really need to use an ESP32. Also, of course, I'm presuming that you want your device to run on battery, that it's not going to have constant power. And so with that, let's start off with maybe the most obvious: use a physical on-off switch. If you really don't need your device to be on, don't have it on. Soft switches are okay, but they just don't work as well because your device is always on, at least keeping the memory alive. That way it doesn't lose variable states and things like that. So, I know it seems kind of obvious, but, my last project, I just put an on-off switch in it because I really didn't need the sensor to wake itself up and do anything. I knew when I wanted it on and I knew when I wanted it off, so put in a switch if that's possible. Now, if you are going to be running on a soft switch where the device needs to wake itself up, that's where point number 2 comes in, which is maximize the amount of deep sleep time and minimize the on-state time for your board. Again, using Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, having that board all fired up uses a ton of power, upwards of 150, maybe even 250 milliamps at times. So you don't want to have it awake any longer than you have to. So with my voice remote, I turn the thing off if it's not used after 30 seconds. For the moisture sensor, it's only awake for about 15 to 20 seconds whenever it's delivering a reading. I only want it to be awake long enough to attach to Wi-Fi, send some sensor data, and that's it. Then it just goes back into deep sleep. So if you're using like ESP Home, some of the things that can help are using Fast Connect and setting your device with a static IP. That way it's not wasting a bunch of time waiting on responses and things getting set up. So the other thing that falls under this heading are, reducing the amount of time that it's awake and limiting the number of times a day it needs to be awake. How often do you really need your sensors updated? Again, that soil moisture sensor only updates 4 times a day because every time it's awake, it's going to be using orders of magnitude more power than it does in deep sleep. For instance, here's something to think about. Let's say that whenever the ESP32 is on and it's communicating, it's using about 150 milliamps, which it could be more than that. And let's say that you've got a board and everything configured so that whenever it's in deep sleep, it's hitting 50 microamps, and that could be possible. In this case, the on time costs 3,000 times more power than having that device in deep sleep. And every time you wake that device up, if you're only having it awake for 30 seconds, that equates to basically a full day in deep sleep. That's how much power you use in those 30 seconds. It's a lot. And so you really want to minimize your on time and limit the number of times that you wake that thing up, right? You want to make sure that you really need it awake when it's awake because that is very costly to your power budget. And moving on to number 3, pick a low power board. Not all ESP32 boards that have built-in battery management are made equal. And I found out this the hard way whenever I picked up an Adafruit Huzzah 32, which is the V1 of their Feather, and found out that it used over 5 milliamps even in deep sleep, whereas their V2 uses under 50 microamps. And so, that's a massive, massive difference in power use, because that 5 milliamps was going to be drawn 24/7 as long as that thing is on battery. And so, pay attention to the different manufacturers. And, you don't think about it, but things like what type of voltage regulator they use and what type of, and what resistor values they use on board for like voltage dividers, and, how active the LED on board is and things like that can all affect a board's power demands. And so pick a board that has very low power consumption. One of the other things that kind of follows under this heading is, believe it or not, you can reduce clock speeds on the ESP32 for some of the modules. And this may not help a ton, but it can help at the edge where you know that you really don't need the thing running full blast. You can pull the frequency down and it will use a little less power. Now, that won't really help in deep sleep, but it will help a little bit of power consumption when it's on. I haven't found that to be super useful because, again, the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth use so much power that when it's on, everything else is just kind of an afterthought. So number 4 on my list of things is something that you really got to pay attention to, which is turning off peripherals when they're not in use. A lot of displays and sensors and things like that will have enable pins. Make sure you use those, right? Turn stuff off when it's not needed, because if you've got backlights on, if you've got sensors on, if you've got amplifiers on, and you're not using them, you're just wasting power. So again, use those enable pins, turn things off when you're not using them. Number 5, if you have any sort of voltage divider network, use bigger resistor values to minimize the drain through the ground attached resistor. Now, this doesn't always matter that much. It's usually not huge. Unless the power running into that voltage divider is turned off in deep sleep, that is a constant 24/7 drain. And it's very easy to set up a little voltage divider network that's always powered, and you're constantly getting extra microamp drains or even up to milliamp drains if you use very low resistor values in those divider networks. I've gone to using 100K or 1 megohm resistors just to really shrink down that current drain. Now, related to one of the previous principles of making sure peripherals are turned off, some peripherals don't have enable pins. And one of the things I found out during that voice remote build was the power of using GPIO pins for power pins. That way you can turn power on and off to devices. For instance, in the voice remote, I used a GPIO pin to power the microphone because the microphone didn't have an enable pin. And so using that, I was able to disconnect power to the microphone just via the GPIO. And this is possible if you're using low power devices. So on most ESP32 boards, you can draw up to 40 milliamps out of a GPIO pin. Now, you want to make sure and check your specific board and what it's capable of, and also pay attention that the board itself has an overall maximum power budget that you need to stay under. So you may have too many devices, but it's a relatively robust number to me. I think it's over an amp total that you can pull across all the GPIO pins, and again, each pin capable of pushing 40 milliamps. And so there's a lot of devices that you can run via GPIO power. You don't have to hardwire in your sensors to your voltage rails. You can turn them on and off with a GPIO command in software, and that can mean that you can turn them off in deep sleep. That is actually how I fixed the power draw on that soil moisture sensor. What I found out was that the sensor being connected to the power directly was a constant drain on the battery, and so it would drain the battery within a week. However, once I ran it off of GPIO power, because I found that the power draw really wasn't that high, all of a sudden now I'm up to almost 2 months of battery life and it's still going because it only gets turned on at the time I'm making my sensor readings. So that's a really important principle to understand, that your GPIO pins can be used to power low power devices. And if they don't have a high current demand, that makes it very easy to turn things on and off when going into or coming out of deep sleep. Now, next up on the list is don't overuse LEDs. Your LEDs need to be informative, and that's great, but don't use LEDs if you don't need them. LEDs just turn power into light, and that's great if you really need the information that the LED gives you. But otherwise, don't have LEDs on because they are just power draws. And so that's something, again, that I see a lot of people putting LEDs on everything. If you don't need an LED, don't use an LED. Now, my last tip that I'll give you is just something to keep in mind. If you're running something off a battery, use a bigger battery. If you really need battery life, just use a bigger battery. Batteries are actually fairly cheap these days, and really it's just a space requirement. Can you allow your device to be bigger and heavier? Because the cost of a bigger battery really isn't that big a deal. And you can also get like 4 2,000 milliamp hour batteries for like $23. And here's another place for $28. You can get 5 1,200 milliamp batteries. And so, just understand that, whenever you're setting your power budget, buying a bigger battery is possible. And yeah, it may cost a little bit more, but depending on how many of these things you're making, if it's not for production, which it's probably not if you're watching my channel, just get a bigger battery, and that can buy you a ton of extra battery life, right? I mean, that's why I use such a big battery for that soil moisture sensor, was just to make sure I had enough battery to meet my requirements. And so, that's my final tip is, hey, all else fails, just throw a bigger battery at it, and that can solve a lot of problems. They're not very big. They don't cost a ton if you're only needing it for 1 or 2 things. So that's a big solution if you need it. And so with that, that'll wrap up this video. I know it's a lot of no-brainer stuff and things that a lot of people already know, but some of these things are things that I hadn't really ever heard of that much, and I didn't know, or else my first project probably would have been a lot better. Going back to that Bluetooth scale, I think one of the reasons why it uses so much battery is because I don't turn the ADC off. It just stays powered on the whole time. And so while the board goes into deep sleep and the display turns off, the ADC for the scale is just constantly burning current. And so that thing doesn't last very long at all. And so because I've learned some different things over time, I'm now building projects that whenever I need to use a battery, that battery lasts much, much longer. Anyway, that's it for me. As always, if you got any feedback, feel free to leave a comment down below. I'm sure some of you out there probably have your own little tips and tricks for maximizing battery life. And feel free to add them. They can be useful for people that see those comments on this video. Other than that, that's all for me. Thanks.